Well, shortly after Jesus cleanses the temple, Jesus and his disciples, they're heading back to the temple. And so as they walk in, they are met by the temple establishment. They're met by the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders, and they come to confront Jesus. And they ask him, by what authority are you doing these things? Who told you could come in and throw around these tables and chairs and try to cleanse the temple? Who do you think you are? See, they were concerned that Jesus had begun a new work. The cleansing of the temple might mean the loss of power, might mean the loss of control over these people. And so the question for them is, who in the world told you could come and change all these things? Who told you could do that? And Jesus responds so well. He just says, I'll ask you a question, and if you can answer it, then I'll tell you by whose authority I do these things. Tell me, does John's baptism, does it come from heaven, or does it come from man? And so they take a moment to think about this. They begin to discuss it together, and they say, well, if we say John's baptism is from God, then he'll ask, why didn't you believe him? But if we say it was from man, then the people will turn on us. And so they didn't know what to do. They were in a hard place, and so we don't know. They just said, we have no idea. And Jesus responds and says, well, then I won't tell you by whose authority I'm doing these things either. See, the interesting thing about Jesus' question is that he actually answers their question, and they are none the wiser. Jesus asks them, is John's baptism from God or from man? And he's essentially asking the same question, who do you think I have come from God or from man? And if they were to say, well, then he's come from God, then why don't you follow Jesus? And if it's from man, other people think he is a prophet as well. They have all the power and all the authority, and yet they do not recognize the one who stands before them in the midst of the temple, the place where heaven and earth, where they meet, and they had no idea. See, this is a challenge for us today, church. Jesus comes into every aspect of our life, and he begins to challenge who has the power and the authority of your life. In our culture today, we are self-sovereign. We are people who rule ourselves. We are our own authority. And the question for us today that I want to leave us with is simply this. Who's an authority over your life? Who do you recognize as ultimate authority? Is it yourself? Maybe it's government. Maybe it's law enforcement. Maybe it's anything. I mean, name it. What about Jesus? Where does he stand in terms of ultimate authority in your life today? One of the interesting aspects of the temple establishment is that, man, they were so consumed by the traditions of the temple that they missed seeing what God was doing right in front of them. They missed seeing that God was doing a new work, and they were unable to see his son right in the midst of them. Right, the light has come in, but nobody recognized the light of the world right in front of them. And it makes me wonder today in our churches how often Jesus wants to do a new work, to build his church anew, afresh. And how often do we get so tied up in our traditions, so tied up in what we always knew church to be since we were a little kid? How does that get in the way of what God wants to do now? Are there traditions, are there preferences that you're stuck in that have become an idol for you? Will you give those away to Jesus this week?